Set in the beautiful city of Denver, a sports show announcer, Piper Alvarez, is giving updates on their local basketball team on a TV show, In the Hoop. A boy, Oliver, is at home, bored and alone watching a sports show about basketball. He rushes to the kitchen to get his dinner and back to watching the show announcer, his mom, and even synced with some of her favorite quotes. Piper is back home and finds Oliver sleeping on the couch. They both talked about the basketball game and tactical approaches and made jokes about their knowledge of basketball. They also talked about Oliver doing his homework and going to bed early. Piper insists he brushes first or he would be relegated to the bench on his school basketball team. Jokingly, Oliver throws a ball to his mom, who finds it very hard to catch, and he sarcastically implies his mom isn't a good sport either. Piper is stunned and they both leave the room. At the studio, Piper's assistant, Bex, is on a call getting instructions from Piper, who is taking Oliver to school on how the day's event would go. She also reminds her to get their star basketball player, Gareth, a gift basket filled with fruits for his birthday, labeling it to be from her. Oliver mentions it's weird as she gave the same gift to another basketball player some time ago. Bex uses the opportunity to talk to Oliver, after which he gets out of his mom's car at his school. He asked to tell his mom something, but she kept interrupting and then got distracted by a phone call from Bex. She bid goodbye to Oliver and drove off in a hurry. Oliver is frustrated and sad by his mom's reaction. Two girls, Anya and her friend, were listening and started making fun of Oliver, saying his mom was a celebrity and doesn't have the time to listen to him. Back at the studio, it's time for the TV show. Piper is taking a last-minute look at her script for the TV show with Bex, and they start talking about a recently divorced basketball player. Bex thinks she could have a chance at the player, but Piper advises Bex never to date a player because they are all players. Bex says it's better to love and lose than to never love at all. They go back to talking about the divorced player while walking to the set. They walk into Piper's boss, Christopher, who has been waiting for Piper before she goes on set to give her some topics to add to the show's script, even if Piper isn't comfortable with the idea. He then teases her that she could be rewarded with her TV show if she keeps doing a great job. The countdown to the TV show starts and Bex gets a call from Oliver's school. The look on her face shows it's an emergency. Piper took the phone and found out Oliver was in a fight with a girl and is in the principal's office, and just right then, the camera starts rolling for her show. The scene is set at Oliver's school. Piper is walking to the principal's office. At the principal's office, Piper was told to wait as the principal was on a call. Stepping backward, she bumps into and stepped on Eric accidentally. They both introduce themselves and get talking about the principal. The principal calls them both to her office and informs them that their kids, Anya and Oliver, were in a fight, but thankfully they were not physically hurt. Eric and Piper defend their respective kids and refuse to accept blame. However, the principal insists on a suspension for both kids as violence isn't tolerated in the school. In a bid to salvage the situation, the principal offers another solution, saying they are both single parents, and that can make raising kids very difficult. Piper assumes it's a donation. She would be happy to do so, but the principal says it's not a donation. She says both kids are in the drama class and both Eric and Piper are tasked with working together to produce the school's upcoming play, Romeo and Juliet. Piper is surprised because Oliver is supposed to be on the basketball team as team captain, but the principal informs her that he was cast to play Romeo over a month ago. Eric suggests that with his currently impressive level of involvement in the school's activities, he can produce the school play by himself and would not want to work with Piper. To avoid doing the work, Piper agrees with Eric, but the principal insists they both work together and takes the PTA off Eric's duties at the school to give him more time. They have to work together or Oliver and Anya get suspended. Piper and Eric are backed into a corner and finally agree to help with the play. The drama teacher, Mr. Lane, walks in quite dramatically, saying he doesn't want his show to be run by amateurs. But since the principal has insisted, he wants them to strictly follow his specifications regarding the props, set, costumes, and everything regarding the school play, which he titles Romeo and Juliet 3000. He dumps a huge book containing his specifications on the principal's table. Piper sarcastically responds, saying the project will be fun, as the principal reminds her that it's punishment, and quickly adds that she's been a fan of Piper for a long time before and she summarily dismisses them. Back at the Alvarez home, Oliver apologizes to his mom for what happened at school, but she is surprised he never talked about Anya and the tension between them, or that he was cast in the school play. Oliver doesn't want to talk about it and avoids the entire conversation as they already got a sermon. Piper insists on talking about it as she is spending time she does not have to keep him from getting suspended. However, Piper is excited that her handsome son is playing Romeo, but insists Oliver should have told her about the school play and his role. Oliver responds by saying she's rarely around for him to talk to and opts to go do his homework. She then calls Bex to give an update about the situation, since it would also affect her time at work. At Eric's house, his neighbor, Morris, brings cookies over and listens as Eric laments over why he isn't just allowed to run the school show alone. He's always helped Anya with schoolwork and he would be able to keep an eye on Anya and produce the show well. but Morris tells him to just support Anya as he does not need to be involved in everything she does. Eric also mentions that Piper would get in his way in handling the show, and Piper walks up behind him as he speaks. Morris tries to notify him, but Eric isn't paying attention and is shocked to hear Piper respond. In the awkward atmosphere, Morris leaves them to get to work. While they grab some more wood, Eric tells Piper she can leave if she has other things to do, but she insists she is okay doing the work. They can work for a while so she can head to work and they can be done by the next day. Eric scoffs at that idea as Anya and Oliver suggest that they would like to help but they'd rather not. Anya mentions a show she'd like to watch and Oliver wants to watch it too as he loves the show. Before Eric and Piper can get a comment in, the kids leave saying they want to go do their homework. Eric and Piper go back to working at Eric's home workshop with Eric still trying to get Piper to leave, saying she would not be able to handle power tools, but he is happy to help her. Piper lets him know her dad had a woodshop and she can handle tools perfectly and build things as well. Starting to work on different aspects of the props, Eric is trying hard to impress with his sword making. He is shocked to see the beautiful sword Piper has outlined on the wood. He still wants to outshine her, but she's ready to take the challenge, saying she would be more involved in the project than Eric. The kids sit by the pool, hearing their parents hassle each other about who is better as they begin to get along quite well. Back at the studio, Christopher is on the phone as Piper walks in. He notices particles on her clothes and Piper dusts them off and begins to explain why but decides otherwise. Christopher compliments her work and how amazing she is at her job, but he points out she was a little distracted before the last show. She explains it's her son's school, but Chris says it doesn't matter and says kids are pesky, which tells Piper that he doesn't have kids. He then brings up the home star player, Gareth, who has decided to retire from basketball. Chris explains the pressure is now much as he has to work on Gareth's highlight reels, but wishes there was someone who can help him work on that project. Piper knows Christopher is only teasing her to help him and she explains she has a lot going on at the moment. But Chris arm twists her by dangling a bigger career opportunity in front of her if she takes care of the presentation. Piper succumbs and accepts to help with the presentation. In the makeup room preparing to start the show, Piper freaks out when she realizes that she has taken on more responsibilities than she can handle by accepting to handle Christopher's presentation alongside the work planning the school play. She begs Bex for help and Bex is happy to help her with the presentation as she cares for Piper. Piper is so thankful to have a loving assistant like Bex. Back at Eric's workshop, both parents are working on different props. Piper is done with making another sword and wants to know what to do next. But Eric is hiding the plan from her, claiming that even though she's made very impressive swords, she should stick to making more swords while he handles the rest so as not to mess up Anya's play. Piper reminds him that she's made more swords than the play requires and the play also includes her son. Anya comes to them with a scale model she made of all the planets and informs her father, Eric, that she used a box cutter and hot glue to make it. He panics, saying she could have hurt herself and even burned the house. Anya cuts in and tells her dad she's fine and is late for school. Both parents realize that the faster they get the school project done, the faster they can get back to their lives. Eric keeps a close eye on Anya so she doesn't hurt herself, and Piper gets back to handling the most important work in her career right now. They both made a deal to help hasten the project. Things are working out pretty fast with the project and they seem to also be having fun working together. Back at her show, Piper gives an update on their home basketball team losing to the Nuggets. Later, she hands Oliver's costume to Eric and then sends a thank you message to Bex, who made the costume. Back at Eric's workshop, while he was working on the props, Piper gets them coffee as they appreciate and compliment the quality of each other's work. The kids say everything is going well as they have been able to do whatever they want with little to no supervision as both parents are busy. They seem to be getting along fine as they decide to rehearse their lines in preparation for the school play. Piper and Eric are still working at the workshop and checking the list to be sure nothing is left out. Morris brings donuts for them and notices the romantic sparks between Eric and Piper. He points it out, but neither of them is buying. After Morris leaves, they continue being competitive and challenge themselves to do publicity for the school play. Back at her show the next day, Piper gives usual updates about the home basketball team, and right before wrapping up also mentions the school play that would be happening in 2 weeks, inviting everyone to go watch the show. The show ends and Bex rushes in to point out that Christopher won't be excited at the publicity stunt for the play but congratulates Piper as well for a win against Eric as he won't be able to pull such publicity. At the school, while setting up the stage, Eric admits Piper's advertising on her show for the school play was a great idea. They run over what still needs to be done as they hear their kids rehearsing and decide to hide for a sneak peek. Oliver is struggling with his lines, but Anya gives him pointers and encourages him, saying he would do great. Piper notices Oliver struggling and wants to help but doesn't know how to as she knows nothing about theater. Eric explains the similarities between basketball and theater as the players and actors leave it all on the court and stage to put on a great show. She approaches the kids and helps Oliver get his confidence using basketball tactics and terms that he's familiar with. It helps a lot. They try rehearsing again and Oliver does great this time. Eric and Piper realize they just both worked together and it paid off. Mr. Lane walks in surprised to see the parents on his stage, but reminds them to continue doing it all to his specification. Back at the studio, everyone is waiting for Piper as the show is about to start. Bex is freaking out and tries to reach Piper over the phone as Piper then walks in. Piper explains that she's late because she was working on the play, and Bex reminds her that she still needs to get the rest of the Gareth presentation ready as soon as possible. Back at home, Eric and Piper continue working on more props. Eric notices that Piper is distracted and mixing things up and nearly drinks paint water. He tries to help ease her and talk about her work. Piper is surprised to find out he likes basketball, and Eric explains he met his wife at a basketball game but never went pro, and went on to become a firefighter. He asks to know what is bothering Piper. She says she has a lot going on with work, and preparing for the school play is hindering her progress on a presentation she should be working on. Eric offers to help out with the presentation, but Piper repeatedly turns down the offer. Eavesdropping, Oliver tells his mom to allow Eric to help out. She agrees and they make an appointment at the gym, which also comes as a surprise to Piper as he said he became a fireman. Eric says that was in the past as is now a personal trainer and he helps people get fit. She shows up at the gym to find Eric working out. After some playful teasing, they get to work on the highlight reel for Gareth. Eric also mentions Gareth's lucky underwear that Piper never knew about. She was impressed by that information and thanked Eric for helping out, especially since she does not like asking for help. While they are at it, two athletes come into the gym and Eric quickly realizes that he double-booked them in error. Eric apologizes, saying he's been distracted lately and offers to reschedule, but Piper says she would be happy to help out. While one of the athletes recognizes Piper from her show, Eric is willing to work with both of them at the same time. Meanwhile, Mr. Lane, the drama teacher, also walks in. Apparently, he'd been accidentally booked for the same session as well, and he is not excited about it. Eric begs Piper to stay and help out, and she happily agrees. They all go through a series of programs with Mr. Lane always coming short and doing everything with his personal touch of finesse. Everyone was having fun working out and they successfully finished the day's session. Mr. Lane points out that Eric and Piper are doing well working together but still insists they strictly follow his specification. The other athletes also say Piper's presence helped boost Eric's energy as they have never noticed it before and would prefer she always comes. Eric and Piper thank each other and Eric walks Piper to her car. They say their goodbyes and call it a night. Eric is sitting by the pool when Morris shows up with cinnamon rolls and asks why he isn't making a move on Piper with all the sparks flying when they are together. Eric says it's just work and nothing else. Morris encourages him to take a break from taking care of others and take care of himself, as it's been 9 years since Eric's wife passed, and it's okay to move on with someone else. Morris says Eric is a good man and deserves to be happy and mentions that Betty made the cinnamon buns, which Eric appreciates. At the school, Eric and Piper are checking the costumes for the play. Piper experiences some nostalgia as she looks through the costumes and she remembers her prom dress. Eric asks Piper about her childhood and found out she didn't have much growing up but was obsessed with sports, specifically basketball. She chose to go into broadcasting because a lot of people said she talked too much, but Eric doesn't believe Piper talks too much. Piper goes on to explain that she met Oliver's dad, Tony, in college and they had Oliver. But he felt Piper and Oliver were both too loud, and so he fell in love with someone else and left them, forcing her to raise Oliver by herself. Eric says Oliver's dad was stupid to have left and assures Piper she's a good mother. Eric tries to use the opportunity to ask Piper out on a date, but her phone buzzes and she has to leave. In the school hallway, she's on the phone with Bex, who is happy that Eric and Piper are getting along fine. She suggests that they could be more than friends, which is not an idea that Piper is willing to entertain as she can't wait for everything to go back to normal. Bex reminds Piper about Chris's presentation on Gareth and how important it is to finish up on time. Back on the school stage, Piper and Eric are setting up the stage. Eric tries to talk to Piper but she keeps avoiding the conversation and Oliver walks in. She encourages Oliver, saying he would do a great job with the play. Anya walks in and playfully pokes Oliver, but Eric assumes they're fighting and stops them. Anya walks over to meet Eric but trips on her dress, almost falling. Eric catches her with such fear that she will fall, but Anya has to assure him that she can take care of herself. Eric tells Anya that he is proud of her. Oliver drops his hat and it needs fixing. Piper offers to fix it as Mr. Lane walks in to remind them of the choreography steps, seeming rather nervous. Meanwhile, Eric tries again to talk to Piper but she's avoiding the conversation. Eric then insists on fixing the hat and Piper snaps at him. Mr. Lane is addressing the cast for the play and calls Eric and Piper on stage as the brain behind the entire set props. Things are awkward between Eric and Piper as Eric hurriedly leaves the stage. Oliver and Anya are worried that after the play, things would go back to the way they were and they don't want that, so they try to come up with a plan to keep their parents together. Piper arrives at Eric's house and everyone storms out hurriedly from the car. Piper calls out to Oliver that they won't be staying, but he runs off with Anya. She also tries to talk to Eric and apologize, but he isn't having it and says he'll help get Oliver. Anya and Oliver sneak away again but leave some snacks and a bottle of wine with birthday candles on the patio outside. Eric is not impressed as he can only see the danger in leaving the candles out and offers to clear the area up. But Piper thinks it will be rude to waste the wine, and that they should at least have a glass. Before Eric can agree, they hear a loud thud from the outdoor kitchen and Eric is so worried that Anya is hurt. They hurry over and Oliver says they are fine and only want to make dinner so they can all eat together. Anya tells Eric that she is just fine as she wasn't even using a knife and Piper is willing to stay as long as the dinner is quick. They make dinner, set the table, sit down to eat, and have a wholesome conversation almost resembling family time. After dinner, Eric and Piper sit alone and they talk about Eric's wife, Lydia. Eric describes her as smart and caring. Eric further explains that she had breast cancer and she died because it was discovered quite late. Piper is sympathetic and praises Eric for doing a great job raising Anya all by himself for 9 years. As they continue to talk, they both agree that they want their kids to be happy, and even though single parenting is hard, they need to give the kids room to grow. Piper admits she likes Eric but is scared as she's not been with anyone in a while. And as they are about to kiss, her phone buzzes and it's her boss, Christopher. She has to leave and calls out to Oliver. At the studio, Piper is at her show and gives updates on their home basketball team as she seems a little distracted and misses her lines. Chris walks up to Piper after the show and sternly asks her to be at his office the next day at 9 a.m. At Christopher's office, Piper admits she's been busy with Oliver's school play but assures Christopher that the distraction is past. Christopher reminds her about finishing the highlight presentation as it will be aired the next day, all to Piper's surprise. Chris doesn't want an excuse and insists Piper gets to work on it. Piper is confused and at a loss for what to do. At home, Piper makes dinner, especially for Oliver, and he is surprised as Piper has not done that in years. They talk about the school play happening later that day and how amazing it will be. She also tells Oliver she might be getting a promotion at work and they could be relocating. Oliver is not excited but offers to talk about it after the show, and Piper says she can't go for the show because of the presentation. Oliver is upset that Piper's work is more important than he is and reveals to Piper that it's the reason for the fight with Anya in the first place, and it looks like Anya was right after all. The doorbell rings and Eric is there to pick them up. He finds out Piper isn't coming to the play and is very disappointed, but Piper replies sharply saying everyone should give her a break. She is doing all that she can for her family. She snaps at Eric again and he leaves. Piper is sad about how she just acted, but she finishes up on her laptop and is set to leave for work. Just before she leaves, she calls Bex and informs her that she's on her way and that talking with Oliver didn't go so great. She intends to call Christopher to inform him that she's on her way. Bex says he's close and moves to hand him the phone as they overhear him on the phone with someone, saying he has no plans to promote Piper. He used her as a means to get the Gareth retirement presentation done. Bex and Piper hear it and Piper gets very upset and hangs up. Chris tries to call Piper back but she's ignoring all calls and he tries to get Bex to fill in for Piper. Piper is willing to do it if Christopher can say her name as they've worked together for years. Christopher fails as he doesn't know her name and Bex walks away. The show starts and the kids do their parts very well as the audience laughs at the modern rendition of Romeo and Juliet. Piper sneaks up on Eric and he is surprised to see her. She apologizes for how she handled things and Eric also apologizes for how he reacted. She admits she wants to give their relationship a shot but goes slow, and Eric is happy to hear that and they hold hands. The audience is enjoying the play as Bex also walks in to see the show and sits with Mr. Lane. At the end of the play, the audience gives a standing ovation to the kids after the show and Bex is fascinated with the show. Mr. Lane and Bex get talking as they seem to have a lot in common. Everyone is having fun at the after party for the school play. Eric and Piper are so proud of their children's performance. Oliver is happy to see his mom as he thought she'd missed the play and asks about her promotion. Piper says she's happy to switch jobs to announcing baseball as Oliver is the most important thing in her life. Bex comes up to reveal that Gareth was impressed by the presentation reel that she sent to him before coming to the play. Piper is also getting a good response from social media. Everyone goes to the dance floor, leaving Piper and the principal. When Eric walks up to them, the principal excuses them. They both talk about taking a big risk for each other and share a kiss as the rest of the crowd continues to dance.